For exercise 5-1, the first thing I'm going to do is click on New, and I can see by the exercise number that it says it is in inches. So for this particular assignment, I want to go ahead and use my imperial file. So we'll click on Imperial. I'll go ahead and hit save on this real quick, and we'll just call it EX5-1 Pringle. And here's my template, so I need to modify this to say 5-1, put in the date, and now I can begin drawing my objects. Now, the thing that we're going to be working with this week is 1-inch spacing in between each of our views for imperial and 25 millimeters in between each view for metric. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and draw my first view, which I'm going to draw my front view first. It comes down 1.5, goes over 1.5, up 0.75, in 0.75, and then it's going to come up to the top and close out. Now I'm going to draw a rectangle, but I'm going to project it from what would be the upper rightmost point of this file. See, this is the very top, this is the very right, so here's where I'm going to start my rectangle. Now what I'm going to do with this rectangle, it's actually going to turn into a square, is I'm just going to type 1, 1. What that's going to do is that's going to give me a 1-inch by 1-inch box that's going to establish all of the view spacing that I need for this particular object. So now what I can do is I can begin to draw the rest of my views. So if I come in here and draw a new rectangle, projecting from here and here, what that's going to give me is that's going to give me the overall shape of my right side, which is going to be 1.5, comma 1.5. Now, I've got my view spacing where it needs to be. I can draw this line in here, and if you remember from the hand sketching, you can do the same type of color coding that we did for the hand sketching on these to try to help you out with what the views are actually going to look like. I did not need to use any type of miter line for this particular exercise because of the fact that it's just going to be a square with a line. And the same thing is going to be true for the top view. I'm going to start a rectangle from right here. My x is negative 1.5, my y is 1.5, and then I can project this line right up to the top to get my top, front, and right side views. Now I need to center this. You want to center it before you place any of your dimensions. That's just going to be the easiest thing to do. The objects themselves are actually the parts that are centered. The dimensions are not centered. So as long as your objects are centered, we'll be fine. So the way that I do it is I draw a line diagonally across from the upper leftmost point of my file to the lower rightmost point of my file. Then I draw another diagonal line from the upper right of my border to the lower left of my border, making sure that I'm not going into the title block. Now all I have to do is go to the Move command, select all of my objects as my objects to move, and then I'm going to move from the midpoint of the small line to the midpoint of the larger line. So now, to verify that this is accurate, if I click on this line and click on this line, I should only see one grip point where those two lines intersect, because that's my midpoints. Once I have my midpoints established and I can see that everything is fine, what I can do now is I can either erase these three objects so that it clears up the drawing file a little bit, or if you want to make it a little bit easier for me when I grade it, if you do something wrong, all you need to do is take these same three objects and put them, after you click on them, just come here where it says layer, or up here where it says layer, and just put them on the check layer. If you put them on the check layer, then I'll know that, or if I see them, they should be on the check layer. And then if your centering is off a little bit or your view spacing is off a little bit, I can just look right here at your lines and try to determine what the problem is. Now for the dimensioning. I know that all of my dimensions are going to go on the dimension layer, so I'm just going to click the layer drop down and I'm going to select dimensions. Now I can go right to linear. I can left click and grab here and here and pull this dimension out. It's going to be 1.5. Don't worry about crossing the magenta lines. They're on a different layer, they're on the check layer, so that's not going to be a big deal at all. I can go right back to my linear dimension. I can pull off the 1.5. Try to find good locations to pull off some of your other dimensions. For example, here's the 0.75 for right there. I can either put it there or I could put it up here. Doesn't really matter. Now I need to dimension this at 1.5, and I will dimension the height of this in this view at 0.75. I'm not overall concerned with how neat your dimensions are this week, but the one thing that I do want you to make sure is that you have these gaps. Make sure that there is always a gap between the dimension line and the object line. Now, this is all the dimensions that are required for this particular assignment. So this one's a fairly cut and dry type of problem, doesn't require a whole lot, but in this one here you are able to see the entire process. Using the template, the creating the views, the centering of the views, and the view space setup, and then the dimensioning. This is the completed exercise 5-1. The only other thing you may want to do just to make it a little bit neater is you can come in here actually and click on the little light bulb next to the check layer, which will turn that stuff off. It's still there, it's just not visible at the moment.